Dear Bobby, hi, my name is Colin Andrews. I am an aspiring film critic, filmmaker, and video essayist. I wanted to start off by saying that I hope you and your family are doing well down in Nashville. From watching some of your most recent videos, it's so nice to see the wholesome content you've been putting out with them. So, anyways, I know that this is a little corny and embarrassing to say, but I have been a gigantic fan of you since 2016. I know that you cringed in a video when talking about the video you made on what Suicide Squad means for the future of film, but that was actually the point where I first found you. I was in the middle of going to film school and seeing someone who was making the content I wanted to make, and I was making it at a much lesser quality, was fascinating to me. Of course, there were other film reviewers and video makers out there, but I couldn't really relate to many of them as much as you because I saw a lot of me in you. You had an incredibly infectious energy about you, but you also weren't afraid to be real and honest about situations, which resonated with who I was as a person at that time as well. So I subscribed and really enjoyed your film content for the next half year or so. When I was writing my term papers or working at the mall kiosk I was the manager of, I know, such a wonderful title, I would always have you playing through my dollar store earbuds that I would have to replace every couple of weeks. Then, when I first moved into my apartment on the campus of the university I went to, and I was in a state of chronic depression, you started to switch your channel over to more video essay-based content, starting with your Steve Jobs piece. Since I was in uni for film production and studies, this was even more up my alley, which I didn't think you could achieve, and I became even more enticed with what you were doing. I would listen to you every morning walking to my 9 a.m.s, and that would calm down my nerves that I had for whatever the day was to entail. Then, at the end of my school year, you started your 4.0 content. You made a video on I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, which was my best movie of the year at the time, and even managed to get an interview with the director of the film, Macon Blair. That was the moment I was fully like, yeah, this is the type of content that I ultimately want to be making. The amount of times you were able to evolve in such a completely unique direction, and the fact that you added even more and more value every single evolution was absolutely mind-blowing. And gradually over the summer, although you maintained the same format of content, you began to shift the subject of your content over to YouTube and people on the platform. Again, you blew me away, dude. I was into the commentary community a decent amount, but all of their content was so monotonous, and they all talked about the same thing, and the level of effort that they put in was so low, I couldn't particularly get invested in the genre as a whole. Then, here you come along again with a swagger and production value that has yet to be matched by any single commentary channel ever. You differentiated yourself by discussing more broad topics, and even when you honed in on a certain subject, you discussed it more as a part of the grand scheme of things. You addressed issues with internet cultures through not only some awesome goofs and gaffes, but also through some pretty insightful commentary. My favorite one from the cycle is the Report of the Week video, hands down, just in case you were wondering. Then the whole Shane Dawson thing happened. While everyone was looking at the collaboration between the two of you and saying, who is this Bobby fella, I was on the opposite side of the spectrum. I had heard of Shane Dawson, as it was impossible not to, but as a film boy, I only knew him from the dumpster fire he made called Not Cool. His content never really intrigued me, but after your collaboration with him, I started watching his channel. And side note, without that, I would have never found the most precious human being on the planet, Garrett Watts, so thank you for that. Anyways, I was so ecstatic seeing your channel blow up like I always knew it deserved to. And if that got me hyped up, picture my excitement when I figured out that you were going to be moving out to LA and making content on Shane's channel. That was so incredibly wild to me, and I couldn't be happier for you. You had gained something like 400,000 and were only rising like a plane during takeoff. Then you made the move to LA and 5.0 came around to the forefront, and this is where I'm going to try and sound like a breath of fresh air. You know there were a lot of people who completely hated the shift to the more vlog-oriented content you were putting out, but honestly, I kind of loved it. Now, I completely understand the complaints that you were, in a sense, ripping off Shane, which you were, but when you get such a large fan base from a creator, plus with the added pressure of living in a more expensive location, it's not hard to understand wanting to make stuff similar to the stuff that they like. However, it didn't seem that off to me. Being a longtime viewer of the channel at that point, I loved your friend group. Elliot, Yale, Thomas, Sawyer, and Jordan all brought a different aspect or vibe to the group, and you all gelled super well together, thus making the more basic content just as enjoyable for me. However, not everyone can be pleased by everything, so you started losing support from original fans who didn't like the change in what you were making. Then 6.0 came around, which was short-lived, and then Nasty Boy happened. That's when the spiral, and I put that in quotation marks, started to happen. Although I didn't like the music too much, as you just kind of sounded like you were an amalgamation of Puya, Ghostmain, Suicide Boys, and other people like Bones in that genre, it just seemed like a classic case of what happens when someone goes to LA. When one moves out into a melting pot of a city like that, it's natural to understand that there will be development in personality, development in expression, development in everything. However, for both your original fans and the Shane group, it seemed like this was the breaking point. Videos started getting massive dislikes, everyone in the comments section was begging for 2017 Bobby back, and that scumbag, the Rewired Soul, asserted that you were addicted to drugs, which led to an even bigger collapse. We then moved on to a period that was more of an intermediary time, where you released more music in a more documentary style of series where you interviewed a bunch of people, and I thought that was pretty good content, yet the downward trek had already begun, and people already had their feet completely out the door. At this point, I was genuinely feeling bad for you, and trust me, I'm not sucking up to you or anything like that, because some of the music you released during that time was pretty bad, but you were just a young adult in LA trying to find your way, and people didn't seem to understand that. Or if they did, they just wanted you to be different. There is one thing I will say, though. In regards to that period of time when you were in LA, I don't think it is fair for people to speculate on your mental health or what was going on in your life, but to me, you didn't seem as happy as I'd previously seen you. Looking back at your video on the happiness deception of YouTube, I picked up on a couple of those aspects in your stuff at that time, especially comparing them to how you acted in your Swiss Army Man video, which you reference as a point of faking happiness. So when I got the most worried, you naturally disappeared off of the platform for a while. I figured you were taking a break for your mental health, and from occasionally checking your Instagram absent-mindedly at work, my suspicions were confirmed as I saw you back in Tennessee with your family. You looked more stress-free, and regardless of whether we got any more content or not, I was happy to see you happy. You put out Ugly, which is by far the best song you have ever made, and some more songs over the next couple of months, but no real YouTube content to speak of. I had basically come to the conclusion that you were just going to be making music, and since it seemed organic, I was happy with that. Then, out of absolutely nowhere, you started making content again in February with Nathan and Sydney, and I gotta be honest with you, dog, I am so impressed. The fact that you were able to come back from the toxicity that your fan base held for such a long time and make stuff that is still true to yourself is so admirable. And you continue making music, which is something that you are incredibly passionate about, while making more vlog-style content that kind of infuses almost every single part of your past phases. Though I would never put it past you to continue evolving. You look happy making things with the people that you love. And everything about the channel seems so natural. So, in conclusion, I hope you keep making the content that you want to make and feel proud of yourself, because you should be, Bobby. I hope that at some point I will be able to meet you and maybe buy you a burger or something like that. And maybe, just maybe, we can talk about the invitation. Sincerely, Colin Andrews.